Bill Strong with ChampCar.Live, and I'm here doing our Shop Talk series. I'm here with Drew Nabb, and he is a NASCAR, what is it? Some sort of engineer, some smart guy with a NASCAR team. What do you do?
Yeah. So I've had a couple jobs. I've been doing NASCAR stuff for about 12 years now. And at one point in time, I was a race engineer. And in our world, race engineers are the guys that travel with the team. Most teams will have 2 race engineers, and those guys are basically the assistant coaches to the crew chief. Mm-hmm. You think of like a football team, you have head coach, he's the crew chief in our world, and there are 2 assistant coaches that help him out, 2 engineers. I did that job for 6 years, traveled around the country, all 38, 39 races a year, and after that I decided to stop traveling, and so now I'm an engineer. I work in the shop, and I develop the cars from Mooresville. I don't have to travel every weekend anymore, but I still get to dabble and play with cars for a living.
Now you've done suspension, shocks, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Or dampers?
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of everything. I've been lucky enough as a former race engineer that I know a little bit about a lot of things, but not enough at any one thing to get stuck in that spot for very long.
Ah, that's good.
So it depends, whatever we need at the time, but I get to move around a lot, and I really like that. And early in my career, I actually entered this and started out doing a variety of small jobs for the first team I worked for. Mm-hmm. NASCAR has become more defined in each person's role. We are becoming much more like F1, where you have a lot of guys that have 1 or 2 things they do. If you go back to NASCAR 20 years ago, at best they may have had one engineer. Mm. And that guy had to do everything from IT to like actually develop stuff in the car, to make a handful of drawings if they needed drawings. And now we have 40, 50 NASCAR engineers at the company I work for now. And most other big teams do as well. They have staffs of 20, 30, 40 people.
Wait a second, I thought NASCAR was a whole bunch of Ricky Bobbies, what do you call it, work overalls and big hammers and moonshine and big V8s and stuff like that. But you actually have engineers, you actually have guys that, these cars, even though, this is a Champ car here, but the NASCAR cars, we did a tour with you guys a couple of weeks ago at the shop you work at. We're not going to say the shop. You guys can look it up on the internet. But it was super high tech. There's nothing low tech in what you guys do nowadays. It's pretty much, there's a science behind every nut and bolt behind that car.
Well, the best way to ruin the fun in any series is just increase the money. Mm-hmm. But so as the teams have become better funded, all of the small things matter more and more. And you see this in amateur racing sometimes. Like I like to, talk about Spec Miata. I don't race Spec Miata. But we get the same Spec Series syndrome, which is the tighter that the rules clamp down on what we do, the more we ooze between the fingers and find new ways to spend money.
Right.
And new ways to make every little thing a little bit better. And, years and years ago, to make your car better, it required pretty basic things, and there were really big knobs you could turn. Now, as the cars get more developed, the teams are more competitive, they keep a better watch on each other and what they're doing. It takes a lot of really, really small things and really small gains to add up to an increment that makes you dominant.
Right.
And that requires a lot of people that are really good at the one thing they do.
So, how has your experience with NASCAR and your education in car building helped you with Champ Car?
Well, I actually in college was a part of Formula SCE, which for those of you that don't know, Formula SCE is a collegiate design series. So it's like a college sport for people that aren't good enough to play college sports, but with race cars.
Right.
And the challenge there is you have to design a race car each year from scratch. That gives you the chance to change all kinds of things. And sort of like Chump Car, some guys go with the different name change. Okay. So So I actually started out in Formula SE. And in Formula SE, it's Collegiate Design Series, which is kind of like a, college sport for people that can't play college sports.
He thinks we're doing this scene again because we've been doing this for like 16 hours filming a new series that we're doing. So he thinks I'm going to cut this out. It's staying in. This is a one-shot show. You know that, right?
Yeah. All right, Mike. I'm filling in the pot for the money I got to pay every time I say the wrong name.
It's all right.
So my excuse, though, is I have friends that worked in the original Champ car. Yeah. So for me, it's so hard to distinguish the two.
Yeah. They're so awesome.
Well, they're both awesome, actually.
Yeah.
So Formula SE, in college, I got to design race cars on someone else's budget, which is what I do for a living now, too.
Right.
Through that, you see other schools building cars. You learn firsthand what not to do because that's largely what most of the design series is. Right. You have these great ideas that fail horrifically from very simple details. And so that helped me a lot in my car building. But professionally, having 10 years of exposure and watching how people do things, seeing somebody that has done whatever construction method you're talking about, like building a cage or welding, the guys I'm around have done that for their entire lives. Mm-hmm. So if I want to go build a row cage, I can ask somebody, like, hey, back when you guys had to do this manually, which we don't bend them anymore ourselves, right. They're outsourced and bent by another company, how did you do it? And I can go around and walk and ask somebody and get 20 years worth of, right. Back in the Stone Age when it took 2 dinosaurs and a big giant mill-looking stone wheel, this is how we rolled it.
Right.
And so that's been like really, really helpful. And then also like this area of the country, you're exposed to a lot of professional motorsports parts and subsidiary companies. And people forget how much we don't make on the cars ourselves and we outsource to another company.
Right.
And so all those experts are here. I want to say, I think if you can't build a race car here, then you either don't have friends, you don't have money,
right,
or you're too stubborn to listen.
True. Now, you guys are racing a Neon. You've been racing a Neon for a few years.
Why a Neon?
Freaking cars.
Why a Neon?
Why did you pick Mom's Neon? Because Mom.
Oh
these
man.
These are the Mom cars, man. Me, or what did they say? Me, what the
high.
High. That was it. High.
But with the bug eyes, like in a very condescending to male car owners way, like, oh, I have a Firebird. I have a Neon. Hi.
Yeah.
So why Neon? So I for work I traveled from about 2009 until 2012, and I was on a team in 2012 that won the championship. Mm-hmm. And for my own personal career development, as a race engineer, I was always looking to see what the next step was. And the next step from race engineer is to try to become a crew chief. Mm-hmm. Like you go from assistant coach to be like, I want to be the head coach. And that was going to take a long time. NASCAR expanded a bunch in the mid-2000s, and like right before I got out of college and entered this in 2006, the growth slowed down. Before that, like I think anybody that had an idea and a cell phone, a couple buddies to call was going to start a race team. And in 2009, when the market also crashed, the jobs started going away. And so I saw that it was going to take a long time to get my opportunity. And I had to make a personal choice between, do I wait it out? And I had guessed that about age 40, I would have a shot, maybe being an Xfinity or Nationwide, depending on what era we're talking about, crew chief. And early 40s, mid 40s, I would actually, if everything worked out, have a chance of being a crew chief on a Cup car. Some guys have beaten that recently, but in general, there are just more people. You fast forward to today, and each team has 2 of these race engineers. Back in the past, in the 90s, you're lucky if you had 1.
Right.
So the number of people that had exposure to get the experience and get those skills to become a crew chief was smaller in the past than it is today. So just making it harder and harder to advance. So after the 2012 season, I was at Homestead, standing on the platform there. We won the championship, and we were scoring each other with the really crappy champagne they give you, and they give you these these goggles that look kind of like ski goggles, but they're clear.
Right.
And at first I had them out, and you're like, what are these for? And I'm like, oh, because the champagne is going to burn your eyes.
Yeah.
And people were throwing stuff everywhere. Unfortunately, the goggles didn't train some of the people to not drink the champagne. So as soon as they popped the bottle, I was like, I can smell them, like, this is garbage stuff. They do not drink that. But I kind of realized I wanted to go back to, having a more regular life and not traveling 37, 38, 39 weekends a year. And I wanted to get my personal time back. And so I had the opportunity in 2013 at the VIR 24-hour race to go race. A buddy of mine that I had known through Formula CE days, and I did some autocross and some go-kart fiddling around here in Charlotte. I knew him through that. He says, there's this new race series. It's awesome. Come out and race with us. I said, Mark, I don't have a SCCA license, and I don't really have interest in spending $3,000, $4,000 to go through jumping through hoops,
right.
Whatever it takes to get an SCCA license. He goes, don't need a license. Like, what do you need then? He's like, I think all you need is a checkbook and a pulse, but you might need a driver's license as well. So I'm like, really, that's all it takes? He's like, yep, come out, we're racing, we need another guy. I told everybody I'd bring you along. I'm like, well, but I haven't raced wheel to wheel before.
You did karts, though.
I did karts, mostly kart practice stuff, open stuff, because I was gone on the weekends when there were kart races, but we could go to open practice sessions and beat the fenders off one another in like unofficial, like everybody else is testing tuning, and we're testing and tuning our fenders on one another. But I had that experience, and I had, seat time in doing a bunch of autocross and other Formula C stuff. So I'd race things, but not racing against other people. So he courses me to go out there. He's like, you're going to be fine. You're way fast. If you can figure out how to not hit other people or get involved in accidents and manage the traffic, you'll naturally just be good at this. So I trusted him. I came out, and I actually did pretty well. Like the 6 guys I was on the team with, I think I was 3rd fastest roughly, which is pretty good for the guy that showed up and went like, where's pit out? Right, yeah. Like, how do I get on off the track? Right. And they're like, oh my God, this guy's gonna kill the car. And like, wasn't slow, just, literally like, I've never seen this place before, like from the other end. Right. I've been to VIR North probably 6 times with testing. Yeah. And always from my standpoint, I'm in the garage looking at data and like everybody else having fun. Yeah. So went out, ran the race, and had fun. My buddy Mark was like, well, you need to buy the car. Like, no, I don't. He's like, you don't have any bullshit excuses anymore. You don't travel. Right. I know you won the championship, so there's like going to be bonus and stuff in the bank. Like, I know, just buy this damn car. I'm like, I don't want to buy this damn car. I bought the damn car. So $2,500 later, I'm the proud owner of a former spec neon turned champ car with all the spares that came with it, a trailer full of everything. Right. And ever since then, just stuck with them. And I think, I don't know if I found the car or the car found me, but it's one of the platforms I think that can be made fairly competitive in this series. And for that reason, and basically having parts, having the car, I always stuck with it.
See, I find there's justification for me spending my riches on a Toyota MR2. I could just never see spending your NASCAR riches on a neon.
Well, it doesn't take a whole lot of riches to buy a lot of neon.
No, it doesn't.
So like my
but they're really, really fast too.
They are pretty fast. Now, like I will say, I have another team. See, the first neon converted so many people to neons. Like it was its own ad campaign.
Right.
And I inherited some of the drivers from the guy I bought the car from. Also him, because I bought the car, brought it down here. He sold it thinking it wasn't going to be competitive. I bought it, and as it wasn't particularly competitive, but it just needed to have a bunch of stuff cut out. So
basically, you just made it super duper light.
Yeah, so I cut 70-something pounds of weight out of the car, turn around, race it again, four months later, totally different car. And ran it back to him the next race, and I got invited to go up and run with them, and the 4 of us finished 3rd at New Jersey, I think it was. And after that, one of the guys that rented the car, which this is the kind of guy you need on your team, I show up to this race. I've chopped this car up. I'm kind of a newbie to all of this, and the guy that owned the car previously, Marcus, said, hey, we're all staying in Dick's motorhome. Like when you drive up to New Jersey, we'll have a spot for you. I'm like, okay. So like I'm thinking like, I don't know, like bombed out E-Series van motorhome,
Right.
or, you know, like, it's a Renegade with a stacker behind it.
Holy crap.
So this is a house.
Yeah.
This is a house with wheels and a nice house. So I kind of figured out right away, I'm like, this is the kind of renter you want to have.
Right. Yes.
Bills don't go unpaid when he's like, oh, $1,000 a stint, I own a Renegade,
Yeah.
not a problem.
Yeah.
So those guys, the guy that owned the Renegade, he was 70-something, my hero.
Yeah.
70-something, owns a Renegade, races
Yeah.
cars. And his son is in his like late 30s, early 40s at the time. They decide they want to build a car. And they ask me and they say, hey, you know, we want to build a car. I'm like, it's not a big deal. Like, you rented from me, you're good renters, like, no hard feelings. Like, no, we want you to tell us how to build it.
That's cool.
So like, I gave them the plans and like all the modifications I've done to my car, all the things to buy, all the things to look
Right.
for. And they built a more or less copy of mine. And so there's this other Neon team that runs out of Indy, and they are like a partner team for me. So between the partner team and I, we've owned something like 8 or 9 of these
Wow.
damn Neons.
Have you ever crashed into your partner team?
We have touched fenders. We've kissed.
Yeah,
we've kissed.
Yeah, we've touched fenders too.
We kissed, we didn't make out.
Oh yeah, well,
We didn't make out.
I think Troy's car passed out along the way.
I remember being
that good.
I remember being at that race, and like, you can't show on TV the kind of makeout session you guys had.
No, but it really sucks when you're in the same pit lane.
Oh, yeah,
and his car
yeah.
comes in just all like in a ball.
Now,
and
as a professional, I've worked on a race team where the 2 blue cars decided to make out and like get in a wreck after some dead heat, like sock'em rock'em robots fight for 35th position. The 2 drivers didn't get along at the time. If it's a consolation to that, but
do the crews get involved? Because that's what I see on TV.
if it's hard when it's the same team, because you're going home in the same damn airplane.
Yeah. Oh.
So like, usually for us, the 2 crews look at each other and we're both just like, somebody please get those 2 drivers to sort the shit out outside of the race cars.
Right.
You know, because like, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into something that somebody else just, you know, smashed up.
Yeah.
And so the teams aren't necessarily thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get that guy that I'm gonna see every day of the week for the next year.
Yeah.
Like, they're thinking like, oh my God, for him and for me, like, why are we here right now?
Yeah. So you're building a new car. How soon are you going to have this car done? Is this something that you'll have together in a couple of weeks or a day?
So, like most people, you take whatever number I think, multiply it by 2 or 3.
Oh, yes.
That's how race cars work.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping by the end of the year to get this out and running. So December 2016, I believe, we actually decided to shorten our Neon.
Yes, it is.
Yes, we shortened our Neon. This one's been shortened a different way.
So the other one was...
So the first Neon we shortened by driving it through both tire barriers at VIR in turn 1.
Yeah, we have film of that.
Yep. It's one of the few wrecks where you could actually like see multi-axis failure of the chassis.
Yeah.
So we had to actually jack up the front of the trailer because the impact bananaed the frame, and the frame was dragging. Like, you actually couldn't roll the car. The middle of the car was sagged so bad it was dragging the ground. That was a brake failure, and like most people, we kind of climbed the performance curve, mostly with power, not enough with brakes.
Right.
And you know, I brought 12 hours of brakes to a 14-hour race. So
it happens a lot with
Yeah. So funny story. I was next driver ready to hop in, and I'm sitting on pit road in my gear, caution. I'm like, hey guys, let's radio to him, bring me on the caution. You know, like, it's within the pit window, I can get in and make it. And guys radioed in and put the radio down. I'm sitting there talking, we're talking, and I'm like, hey, did he ever respond? He's gonna come in? Because we're waiting in our gear. No, he didn't. Radio again, didn't hear anything. And they're like, damn, radio's broken, surely. So we're like, I mean, this caution is pretty damn long. We're waiting, and I look, and I'm like, hey, has anybody seen the car go by recently? You know, like, we're under caution. I think I would have seen it.
Right.
So I like see a a car that's easy to discern go by, and I just watch. That car comes back around. Hey guys, I didn't see our car. That's when they're like, wonder where the caution? Like,
yeah, why do we have a caution?
Maybe ran out of gas or something, right? Like, you're always thinking best case scenario. And then we see the orange lights, like, on the wrong side of the fence way down in turn 1. And I'm like, why is the wrecker going, like, out in the grass? Right. The wrecker's going, like, down into turn 1, like, past all the barriers and stuff. So, see it dragging the car back, and I'm like, hey, it's a black car. It looks kind of like it's neon shaped. And I'm like, oh, that is our car. And so the roof was all caved in. And at first we're like, oh my God, he rolled the car.
Right.
We're worried about him. He gets out of the car, and thankfully, he's the son of the guy that I first interned for. And so the guy that wrecked the car is, I don't know, like 20 years old.
Yeah, he's a young guy. Yeah.
And so he was okay. He told the paramedic that the only thing that really hurt was, his manhood.
Yes.
And not his ego.
No.
And I told his dad he could thank me later for delaying grandkids for a couple of years.
Yes.
And then we asked him, we're like, how'd you roll the car over? And he goes, I didn't roll the car over. I'm like, well, the roof's all caved in. He said, well, brakes failed. And, I didn't think I should drive through the gravel trap for whatever reason. I think he was trying to, just drive away from the wall.
Right.
And so he drove away from that wall and realized, I don't have any brakes or anything. He hits the first tire barrier, breaks the cable, cleans all the tires out. Some of the tires actually bounce up in the air so high and forward that they hit the car again as the car goes through the second tire barrier, and the pelting the tires on the roof was what caved the roof in.
Oh, okay.
And so then the car turtles itself up on the second tire barrier.
Yeah, because it was up in the air.
Up in the air, and then they have to drag it off with the crane. So that's how the first Neon died. And it was a fairly competitive car, but again, you inherit a car from somebody else, and they built it to whatever they're trying to do at the time. As a spec Neon, the cage was heavily compromised initially because it was meant to be bolting cage that I welded stuff to and made it better and not a bolt-in and became legal. But just in general, this car was full of small compromises it took to be able to go race again. And because I had not built it, I was like, I'm not going to put the effort into totally build another car. I dabbled with the idea, and then it had become a reality in a hurry.
Right.
So fast forward to now, when you can find Neons cheap, and this other team that I talked about before, Zach and I, we have a standing bet that neither one of us, up until recently, has paid more than $300 or $400 for a car.
Jeez.
And we have this running tally of number of Neons purchased, and number of teeth that the owners have. And so far, he's radically beaten me. But living between Indianapolis and Muncie, Indiana, I feel like it's not really fair.
True.
His selection of car buyers just gives him that advantage of tooth count to vehicle purchase price.
Right.
But yeah, so I've owned probably 5 of these things, 4 of these things, and the most recent one I bought, I actually paid some kind of respectable money for because it's finished and running and driving and was a performance street car. But the rest of them that I'm just buying for the body shell and spare parts and whatnot, $200, $300, $400. I bought 2 of them once. This one came from that mix. Saw a Craigslist ad for $700, and the car had a bunch of aftermarket performance parts. Several of those parts though were Mopar parts you could buy that came on the ACR model, but people would buy them from the catalog and put them on their base model car.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well that's worth about $700, sure. It's kind of it's asking more than I really wanted to pay, but that was what it was worth, and I knew it was going to ruin my vehicle purchase price, the tooth count, because this guy had all his teeth.
Oh yeah.
But Zach won that bet forever ago, so I let it go.
Yeah.
I showed up with $700 to buy the car, and I had hand the guy $700. So I loaded up one car, and he goes, "Oh well, when are you coming to get the second one?" And I'm like, "Well, I only want to pay $700." And he goes, "Well, the ad was $700 for 2."
Oh wow! So you kicked his ass. That's funny.
So next thing I know, I'm up there the next day and grab the second Neon.
Wow.
So that's the world of Neons. So having a cheap car that you can acquire the body for cheaply, although it costs me more than that to race, and you've got to put a lot of effort and money in it to get the finished product. You can experiment a little bit because the bodies and frames and body panels are really dirt cheap.
Well, what's neat about the Neon too is they have the spec Neon, so you have a lot of data already out there on how to make these cars really fast. So
and so you end up with
the short stubby car,
stubby Bob,
cut right in the middle, kind of pushed together.
So cool. So this car has been named. The name fringes on being PC or not, but her name is Bridget. And for those of you that are not at work and want to leave your Google search on safe mode, one of my teammates decided to name this thing Bridget the Midget.
Ah. Not that I know. I'm going to look it up later.
After the performer.
Yes.
So Bridget here has been sectioned 16 inches in the middle, which makes the wheelbase roughly CRX sized.
Wow.
I've cut the crossmember of the back of the car to raise the rear roll center, and a couple other tweaks here and there. Built a much better roll cage this time around that tied in better to the chassis to prevent it from bananaing when we drive over the next thing. And taking my time this time, building different brake packages, just trying to make a better car. You know, like once you commit to not racing for a while and doing it right once, you know, you can make a pretty good product. And
so what do you say against the guys that want to just basically get a car, throw it in a farm field, go race it, throw it back in the farm field, take it to the track, kind of get it ready and go race it? They're the one, you know, those guys will complain that guys like you and me and Troy and Tyler, and the guys that spend a lot of time testing and tuning and making a better chassis and package and lightness and all this stuff, that we're doing something not champ worthy. What do you say?
So
that's hard.
It's a hard one. So what I do for a living is create unequal advantage for my drivers, right?
Yep.
So my existence professionally is to give somebody an unequal advantage over somebody else. I think in this series you have to leave some room, and you can either leave that room voluntarily by allowing rules that are fairly liberal, or you can make really tight, stringent rules. You look at Spec Miata, gotta spend the most money, run the fastest cars.
Right.
It's a spec series. What I've done here requires some specialized equipment. Some of it not particularly expensive. I became very familiar with my Harbor Freight.
Yep.
And it requires some time, materials, and some creativity.
Right.
I would say there are some cars that can perform equally as well as this with almost zero modifications. I would also say that the second car I built, compared to the first car I built, I did a lot of weight reduction on the first car. It was substantial. I did it with grinders, cut-off wheels, tin snips, all the slow, horrific ways of doing it. After I learned how to do it with the right tools,
I have a plasma cutter
so much faster.
Yes.
And if you're one of those guys that's doing your car in the field, you can get 90% of the gains I'm doing here.
Some of them do just by it rusting.
They do. They go back to whence they came.
Yes.
But you can get 90% of the performance gain I'm getting with 10% of the effort.
Yeah.
And asking somebody, unfortunately, it has to be the right somebody, because a lot of people are protective about how they've done things or what they've done.
Right.
Asking the right teams, how do you do this? How do you quickly get weight out of the car? How do you move, section, adjust your suspension, change pickup points? How do you do that kind of stuff? Well, that's part of what we're covering in the series we're filming right now, which is going to cover tech topics on Champ Cars. But you can also ask anybody else in person. I'm probably not going to come out and help you do it in your field, but I'll tell you how to do it yourself.
Right.
And I think it's great this series allows people to be creative and make some of these awkward, goofy cars.
Yeah.
And have fun with it.
Yep.
And ultimately, in the rebranding of our series to the new name, which I'm struggling with, but getting better with.
He is.
Remember change? How many times it was it was listed in that intro.
Yep.
I didn't count because it wasn't a drinking game yet.
Yeah.
But if it became a drinking game, it would have been a long night. I think it's important to remember that, and you've got to have faith that the series will continue to change, which is going to be painful for some people, but Mike is dedicated to making it a good show. Mm-hmm. If I go out there in this thing and stink up the show, I suspect there being a VPI adjustment, even if the line item says VPI adjustment for any car Drew Nabb touched.
Yes.
Whatever it takes. And in some way, I mean, I'll be honest, that happens in our series. It happens in pro motorsports. It depends who you are when you're asking questions. And a lot of that is there to provide natural bias to make things a little bit closer, right? The rest of the world goes that way professionally as well.
Yep.
If you're the big dog, people are always looking to cut you down.
Yeah.
And despite what the motivational posters will say, eventually they're going to clip on your knees and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And you're going to come down to, off the pedestal.
Yep.
And if you're one of those cars that has advantage right now, be prepared for the day that comes.
That's right. Which is December 31st for the LR2.
Hopefully not for the Neon. Yeah. But you've got to have faith that through the waves up and down that you'll get there and the cars will still be competitive. And the opposite example, you go through the history of some SCCA classes and working at one other race team, the one that won the championship in 2012. Their sports car efforts, they legitimately recognized that there was about a 3-year window and cycle that if you wanted to enter a prototype car in that particular series, which you can look up online, the first year you have to run poorly, even if you don't think you have to run poorly. You lobby for changes the second year that you dabble in and get a little bit less awful, but you still don't want to win too much.
Right.
Third year, you wax everybody.
Yeah.
And then you get out or you change something because you need to go right back to
the beginning,
being terrible again.
Yeah.
And it's this constant rule lawyering. And to a lesser extent, that probably happens in almost all pro motorsports. Right? You want to go back to the 70s when Chrysler won everything with Richard Petty? Some people would like to see 70s racing, but for different reasons.
Right.
And, I think for that, you recognize it as a wave. There's going to be times you're riding the wave and times you're getting beaten down by the wave.
Yep.
But in general, if we can get that wave to have less oscillations or just simply less of a peak to trough variation, it'd be fine.
Since we're very near Charlotte, North Carolina, what do you think of the new road race that'll be happening here at Charlotte Motor Speedway in August? Is it August?
Super interesting. It's actually the same date as the race was in October always for the traditional course.
Right.
But I'll put it this way, as a company, the team I work for right now, we have gone through several test cars and the test dates there.
Oh, really?
And we are not the only one.
Huh.
And people are starting to prioritize what cars they test because they don't want to run out of road course cars.
Oh, wow.
So it's a challenging course.
Yeah.
And I think we saw it as well in our race there, right? It was great.
Yeah.
I actually got to run there myself.
Right. Do you give feedback to the teams about how, because we didn't run the front bus stop, we ran the back bus stop.
So actually...
Wait, did you have race engineers running in our race?
No, he didn't. Well, only one. It was interesting to talk about it and discuss it with some of the guys, experiencing it firsthand, because the drivers don't necessarily share notes to that level.
Right.
They ran there before and after the race I was there. So it did help with perspective, a lot of water cooler perspective as well, just talking and hanging out. And it was super neat, though, to be able to be like, hey, I ran this. And... ran it at a pace that surprisingly probably won't be that far off from what the guys run in the Cup cars.
Wow. Yeah, because they have that front bus stop that they're running.
Well, I would say that you look back, not to change topics quickly, but VIR North, we used to run it all the time when I was there.
Oh, yeah.
And a good time at VIR North would be 130, 128. That was really hauling it in a dedicated 800 something horsepower car with slicks that don't last particularly long to begin with. And I mean, I've run sub 145 in a passenger car with passenger car motor and street car tires.
Yeah.
and you're looking, it's only 15 seconds a lap different, which, I know is still a lot, but
it's not a lot.
It's not as much as you think. No. Like, these things are not as slow as
the difference between the fastest car in our series and the slowest car in our series could be 15, or a minute 15, as in the case of the Opal. But it's not that. I mean, that's not that big a difference.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's at pace, and like you look at mid-corner speeds, a lot of it's probably straightaway speed, right?
Maybe we just have better drivers.
Ooh. Not touching that one. Right. But yes, I expect that Charlotte race will be great for us to watch as fans. Drivers are going to be absolutely out of their mind, unhappy with it, and there'll be a lot of carnage. And unfortunately, there was not carnage in the sense that cars hit each other, but there was a lot of single car accidents at the Charlotte race.
Breaking overstressed parts because they're not used or designed. Because you guys don't have much experience at running there, so your design experience.
Well, or I'm thinking overstressed tires on their way towards the wall.
Oh, that kind of, okay.
Yeah. Look up the Champ Car pictures of
we see
some unnamed vehicles that were in the tire barriers.
Yes.
There were several vehicles represented by Champ Car in the tire barrier.
Yes.
It wasn't just one kind of car.
No. There was a Mustang that we got a great picture of, You figured there was people standing on the other side. So.
Yeah, there were actually several swipe marks still on track when we went to go test there.
Yes.
And
well, that's what we do when we watch the $1 million race there. I'm looking for our stripes.
Yeah, there's a couple stripes during testing that the driver that races for the team that I work for was like, "Where are those marks from?" and the guys in the know were like.
That was us.
Drew's buddies in that series in road racing cheap cars. They were out there smashing the wall over. So,
so what are you guys going to race at next? Because you're racing with other teams too.
Yeah, so I race with other teams. Depends how much I can bully them into doing it. Mm-hmm. I think the other Neon team will end up running Gingerman next, which is a great deal.
We'll be there
cheap.
for that. Yeah.
If you're looking for a race to enter a car and you're not quite sure about. Entry fees are low for that one.
Yeah, and Gingerman's a great course with lots of runoff. It's a great test track, so if you screw up or whatever, you're not going to do much damage, But it's a great course. A lot of elevation. There is some elevation changes. It's fairly flat, but there is some elevation changes. And I know this from experience in the minivan last year, pacing the event. And long straightaway on the back. There's some really decreasing radius turns that are really kind of tricky, especially in a minivan. But we had a really good race last year. It came down to the end of it with I think it was Huggins or DWR, one of those two teams, and the RX-7, Rob's RX-7.
Yep.
So he kind of ran out of fuel towards the end, but it was a great race, and the lead up to it was like it's just another boring little race, but at the end it was exciting. Paulie's going nuts on the show. I'm going nuts at the site. I can't get enough cameras working, and but it was great. So
yeah, so drag those Champ cars out. You haven't had out for a while. We're doing that with the other Neon. We had a motor failure in that car, over a lap and a half into practice at Watkins Glen. So looking to revamp the motor and great opportunity for him to get out there. And the entry fee is cheaper if you don't have problems. Who cares?
Yeah.
You bring old tires. Who cares? I think that's something that's lost in a lot of teams too. Is
everybody wants to do the Watkins Glens, the Sebrings, and the Daytonas, but you get experience at these small tracks and they're fairly inexpensive.
Racing is racing, and also, I mean, if you have a race or something breaks, test mode immediately.
Yeah.